London Fruit and Wool Exchange. This induction is an essential prerequisite of working at the London Fruit and Wool Exchange for CBRE. Failure to participate will mean refusal of work permits and prevention of any work being carried out on site. Objective: you are working with CBRE. We are committed to ensuring the highest standards of health, safety, and environmental management. Health, safety, and the environment is everyone's responsibility. This induction is part of maintaining a safe place of work and ensuring your safety and the safety of others. At the end of this induction, you will be required to answer 3 simple questions and sign to acknowledge your understanding of this presentation, so please pay attention. Areas covered by this induction. This induction covers all areas, including not limited to front and back of house, all floors, occupied or otherwise, all plant and equipment rooms, access and egress routes. The roof area. The purpose of this procedural guidance is to ensure roof access or work is avoided where possible. When roof access or work is unavoidable, all hazards are considered and sufficient safe systems of work are in operation that will actively reduce the risk of injury to all persons involved. Compliance with relevant legislative requirements. Best practice is adopted. Additional inductions and authorization will be required for entry into business-critical areas. Please discuss requirements with your host. All works conducted within the roof safety perimeter will require a dynamic risk assessment. This is to be completed by each contractor and will be accompanied by a safe system of works, RAMs and permit to work and any relevant competencies. Any works that are to be conducted outside the roof safety protection zone will require a working at heights and limitations of access permits to be approved by the building management team. General site rules. No smoking except in designated areas located away from the site. Electronic cigarettes should also not be used. Smoking area is located on White Row side next to the stairs that lead onto this row. Toilets and washroom facilities are located throughout the site. Please ask staff on site to direct you. Mobile phones may be prohibited in some areas. Please ask your host. No personal headphones to be worn on site. Security and identity pass must be worn at all times. Vehicle parking. Vehicles must only be parked in authorized areas. Speed restrictions must be obeyed. Competence. You must be competent in that you have suitable knowledge, training, and experience to carry out your tasks and use any equipment associated with it. Appropriate workwear must be worn when on this site. Shorts, t-shirts, jeans, etc. are not permitted. Food. Dirty overalls and PPE should not be worn in any of the front of house areas on site. Please ensure all food waste and packaging is recycled. Only use tools and equipment suitable for the task. Mains electrical equipment must be protected. Access equipment must be provided by you. We do not provide access equipment on site. Mobile platforms, scaffolds, etc. must be inspected and must only be used by competent personnel. Personnel must be in possession of valid certificates. The type of PPE required to be worn on site may differ depending on the site conditions and hazards present. As a general minimum, personnel must be in possession of and wear when risk assessment or mandatory signage deems it necessary the following PPE: safety helmet, safety footwear, safety glasses, wraparound or with permanently fixed side shields or over spectacle glasses, hearing protection, ear muffs, earplugs, disposable or reusable. Protective gloves. Ensure the correct type of glove is used. This will vary depending on the task you will carry out. Clothing should fit properly, especially in the sleeves and legs, to avoid risks of tripping and entanglement. PPE training. You must use PPE in accordance with the instructions and training that you have received, which must have included the PPE manufacturer's instructions. PPE usage. You must take all reasonable steps to correctly wear, care for and store PPE in its proper place when it is not in use. Where an item of PPE becomes defective or is lost, report it to your line manager immediately. Electrical safety. All persons working on electrical systems must be suitably qualified and competent. Where required, all electrical contractors must be registered with an appropriate governing body, such as NICEIC or similar accredited standards. A copy of the CBRE electrical procedures is available to all personnel. Please ask your host to ensure you are conversant with it prior to commencing work. A suitable and sufficient safe systems of work must be documented and approved by CBRE prior to work commencing. Personnel must make safe the sources of energy using. Prove that your voltage indicator is working using a proving unit. Test at the point of work to ensure the circuit is dead. Prove that your voltage indicator is working using a proving unit. Live working is prohibited. Testing will be subject to authorization by the CBRE authorized person and will be managed via the CBRE electrical procedures. Permit to work. Permit to work are organized by CBRE and require a minimum 7 days for planned work. Emergencies would be catered for at the time. Permits are issued by a CBRE representative. Before the permit can be issued, you must provide copies of your risk assessment, method statements, competencies, safety data sheets, and any other relevant documentation at least 48 hours prior to work commencing. Works are restricted to area and persons authorized on permit without exception. Permits must be displayed at point of work. Permits to work are not transferable and are time limited. You must adhere to the permit to work conditions. Permit to work example types. Hot works. Work that generates high temperature or ignition source. Work which may generate incendiary sparks or other sources of ignition. Fire system isolation. Maintenance operations which compromise critical safety systems or remove them from service. Fire and gas detection systems. Public address systems. Life-saving equipment. Firefighting equipment. Working at height. Mobile elevated work platforms. Scaffolding erection or usage. Working on roofs. Personal fall protection, for example, fall arrest. Working on roofs. Pitched roofs. Working on roofs. Fragile roofs or skylights. Abseiling. Emergency and fire safety information. Raising the alarm. In an emergency, use fire call points and alert the senior member staff on site, if safe to do so. Please familiarize yourself with the fire alarm signal. Please familiarize yourself with your assembly points below. In the event of the fire alarm signal being activated, please leave the building by the nearest fire exit. Dynamic risk assessments. Dynamic risk assessments allow you to stop and think to ensure that you have all the necessary controls in place to reduce risk prior to commencing a task. No asbestos on site. Environmental policy and procedures. Environmental incidents. Follow CBRE accident and incident procedure. Ensure the following are reported to the help desk. Spills. Discharges or emissions to water or air. Emergency plans. Check the site pollution prevention response plan. Ensure you understand how to react in the event of chemical spills, oil or fuel spills. Accident, incident and hazard reporting. CBRE must be advised of any accident, incident or unsafe act or condition hazard report immediately. The CBRE QHSE Directorate and client will be informed of all events within 12 hours. The CBRE accident or incident report must be completed and forwarded to the CBRE immediately for onward circulation to the client. First aid. Please ensure that suitable provision is put in place to provide your personnel with first aid facilities. All security staff on site are first aid qualified. In the event of requiring emergency treatment, please contact Landlord Security or dial 0203 866 1000 or call emergency services for an ambulance. Ensure your site contact and your employer is informed, and any accident or incident is reported to CBRE within 12 hours of occurrence. Compliance summary. All personnel must comply with all relevant legislation and site rules. A risk assessment and method statement is required for your work, including chemicals to be used. CBRE must approve this before work starts. You must complete a dynamic risk assessment on commencement of work activities, and this should be reviewed throughout the task. You must have a valid insurance certificate. Permit to work rules must be followed. You must be trained for your work. You must have the correct tools and equipment to complete your work safely. You must be aware of site emergency rules. You must comply with safe systems of work. Any accident, incident, or near miss must be reported to CBRE. Final check. Do you have suitable and sufficient knowledge, training, and experience to conduct the task you are employed to do safely? You must be competent. Do you understand the contents of this induction and agree to abide by the policies covered within? You must be informed and understand. Do you have a task-specific risk assessment and method statement? Remember, a dynamic risk assessment must be produced before commencing work. Hazards must be identified and risks assessed. Do you have the correct type of tools, PPE, and work equipment, and are they safe to use? That is, subject to periodic inspection. You must be provided with and use the correct type of equipment. If you are unable to comply with the requirements in this induction, then do not proceed and contact your host and employer so that suitable arrangements are put in place. Closing notes. Thank you for your participation, and remember, safety is everybody's business. Please sign the induction register to confirm that you have understood all of the requirements within this site induction presentation.